All right, so taking a look at question number 5, it says for each row, we are going to fill in the missing information. Remember that you can write each percent as a decimal and a ratio first. So this ratio, like we have right here, 1/3, right? That's again, that is the part versus the whole, right? Because that's how fractions work. Fractions, ratios, the part to the whole. Now, the there are a couple of different ways we can look at this. If we go, all right, we've got 1/3. We can change this to a percent by, writing it out as a proportion. So how do I get from 3 to 100? Well, in order to sort that out, we have to divide 100 by 3, and that'll give us, the number that we have to multiply by. So 100 divided by 3 is 33.33333333. So we would have to multiply this times 33.3 repeating. Well, and of course, that would be the same thing up here. And 1 times 33.3 repeating is, of course, 33.3 repeating, or as a fraction, 33 1/3. So that would be 33 1/3%. Now, to take a look at this as a decimal, one way that we look at this, and I'll do this in a different color, we could just take that 1/3. And remember, a fraction like this is just division. So that's just 1 divided by 3. And 1 divided by 3 is 0.3 repeating. So 0.333333. But that's it is what it is there. Okay. Or 0.3 repeating. So you can always take, now there's another step to this if you want to, and this is my personal favorite. And so when I find, when I take a fraction, I want to convert it to a decimal, and you can do these conversions backwards, forwards, upside down, whatever. If you've got a ratio, like say, again, I'm going to look at 1/3, just because 1/3, when you make the division, it's 0.3333, and so on, right? That's going to give you your decimal, of course. Now, the next logical step is to take that decimal, which is 0.33333, whatever, and when I multiply that times 100, that basically means I'm going to take my decimal point, and because I'm multiplying by 100, I'm going to move my decimal point 2 places to the right, and that would give me 33.3 repeating percent. Come on there, write the little percent. There we go. So it's easy to take a ratio and make it a decimal and then make it a percent. Well, so, but you're not always just given the ratio first, like in this case here, 66 2/3%. Okay. Well, so if you want to change this to a decimal, the first thing you'd have to do is to, take that 2/3 and divide that part. Because the cool thing about this is because you've got the, so this would be 66 point something, 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 right? So what is 2/3 as a decimal? So it's, gosh, I've run out of space. I've used up all my available space. You're going to have to be okay with me erasing stuff. Duh. There we go. Erasing, erasing, erasing. Now, 66 2/3%. Now, you have to divide 2 by 3, and that would be 66.666%. Okay. Now, if I want to change that to a decimal, Now, remember how I changed a decimal to a percent? I multiplied by 100. Well, to change a percent to a decimal, I have to do the opposite. I have to move my decimal point the other way because I am dividing by 100 to change it to a decimal. So I've got to go backwards 2 spaces and put it there. Okay, but that's what happens when you divide by 100. You move that decimal 2 places to the left. So that would become 0.666, and so on, or, 0.6 repeating to make that a decimal. Because you have to remember that another way to write 66 2/3% would be 66.6 repeating percent. Okay. Now remember, anytime you have a question, feel free to just type a question mark into the chat, and I will be happy, more than happy, to answer that question. Okay? So now to take this and make it a ratio, that's not too bad either. All right, so let's think about this. If we, depending on how we look at this, that ratio is going to be 66.2/3%, decimal 0.6666666 repeating. Now, since that is a percent, we know that this is going to be 66.6 and so on out of 100. Now, if we were to reduce this down, simplify it down into its most simplest form, I can't believe I just said that, into its most simple form, it would come down to, let's see, how much? That would be 2/3. And why is that? Well, because when we take 66.666666, divide that by 100, or, simplify that down, that's what you end up. You end up with the 2/3. 67%, 66.6, it's all the same. But you start off with something like this. Now, I don't agree with the way that Agile Mind has given us this one to start off with. It would have been easier had they given us something different, but that's okay. They didn't. Now, let's take a look at, and we'll get a little bit more practice. Let's take a look at this last one where they've given us the decimal of 1.25. Now, again, I've got to erase some stuff that I've already got on the screen. Okay. Now, 1.25 as a decimal. To change a decimal to a percent, right? To change a decimal to a percent, I'm going to have to multiply this number by 100. And in doing so, that means my decimal point will move 2 places to the right. So that would be 125%. Okay, 125%. So remember, to change a decimal to a percent, come on there. There we go. To change a decimal to a percent, you must multiply by 100. Now, if you wanted to change, and let me go down here just a little bit more and do some erasing. Conversely, if you want to take a percent and change it to a decimal, you have to do the opposite. You have to divide by 100. And that means your decimal point will move the other direction. Okay? Now, to take and make a ratio, or a couple of different ways, but let's use the percent part here. If we want to change that and make it a ratio, remember, a percent is out of 100, right? So this would be 125% is 125 out of 100. And if we simplify this, yeah, it simplifies down to 5/4, because we would divide both of these by 5. And there you have it, 5/4. Perfect. Okay. Oh my gosh, I am out of time, aren't I? Well, thanks for telling me. Have a great rest of your day, great weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday.